Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Steve Birch.
Thank you, Chairman DeMordaunt. If I may just, thank you for this opportunity, but if I just may first ask a question of clarification. Does this legislation mandate all school districts in the state to teach cursive writing? Is my understanding correct?
Representative Bateman, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to address it?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Burke, no, it does not mandate it. Well, it could. It would. The legislation requests that the State Board of Education include a cursive feature in the Common Core standards. Now, most people don't realize we've had a cursive standard mandate up until 2011. We've had a state standard, but the Common Core pushed it out. The Common Core does not include a cursive feature. Now, we've been criticized for say, hey, this should be strictly a local issue, but the problem is these mandates have pushed it out of the local curriculum. Actually, I'm getting the request from people at the local level to come to the rescue because it's the national mandates that are pushing cursive out. But it has been up until 2011. There was a state standard requiring local elementary schools to teach cursive. We just want to bring it back.
So if a school district chose not to, a school district would have the option to not teach it if they chose, or they would?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Book, no, this legislation asks the state board to include a cursive feature in the Common Core. Yeah, so that the elementary school, that's the only way we're going to save it. If you leave it to the local district, we'll lose it.
But
because, I'll
thank you, Representative Bateman. So maybe just to further clarify, Mr. Birch, and that is that, so this is a concurrent resolution with a recommendation to the state board to act. So we are not enacting a specific law here. This is a resolution directed towards the State Board of Education to act in a certain way. So that's essentially what is on the table today.
Okay. Well, let me just then, in that regard, mute some of my concerns that I might have had given that clarification, which I appreciate. And I think maybe I should definitely respect everything that I've heard here from the people who have testified already. To me, it's really an issue of priority, though, and what we spend our time and focus on. You know, the primary academic argument for this is that this stimulates parts of the brain and aids in the learning process and so forth. But if that is a criteria for justifying this as being an important part of the curriculum, then I submit that even more stimulating to the brain are the arts that are disappearing from our schools: music programs, drama programs. These are being shut down. To me, it's really a question of priorities. If we're going to make this a priority, let's make a 5-day school week in every school district a priority. In fact, maybe we should, if brain development is important, let's take a look at preschool education. I mean, there are so many things that we can be addressing in regard to education. I don't think this is on the top of the list of where we can be trying to achieve these academic improvements for our students. And I think that's there's an issue of perspective here that I just hope that we take into consideration when we look at legislation like this and others. So I'd just like to, leave you with those thoughts and where we spend our time and effort and where we do need, quite frankly. And I would say this, though, if the argument is displacing, that we can somehow, this isn't a unfunded mandate, which the argument is that, we don't have to do other things. I think let's have a clear articulation of what, in fact, teachers will be able to take off their plate to make room for this, because that hasn't been articulated. Until that's articulated, this is just something in addition that's put on their plate. So I just really respectfully ask you to consider that in your decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Questions for Mr. Birch?
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you for the time.
Good
Thank
to see
you,
you, Steve. All right. Any other comments or anyone else? That's all I have on my list in terms of those from the audience that wanted to testify. Is there anyone else that we missed? All right, thank you very much. So, committee, you've heard testimony, and maybe I'll just make a personal comment here. Well, maybe I'll hold that comment to see if there's a motion first.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Would I have the opportunity to close off?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you do. I apologize, Representative Bateman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. Just a couple of closing comments. I have been really concerned about the issue of local control. I mean, I'm a Jeffersonian Republican. You know, I believe in strong local control, local government, and the federal government has mandated too much to us. I don't believe in mandating too much to any local unit of government. But what we have here with regards to our local districts, there's been so much mandated through No Child Left Behind, for example, and now the Common Core, that we're pushing some very valuable things out of our curriculum, and the handwriting is one of them, and the cursive handwriting, and it's actually, this legislation in part is coming to you because of requests from at the local level for relief. You know, they want this kept and maintained, and somehow we should maybe be able to make the adjustment. Now, we don't want to just pile more on the plate. That's true. And I just give one suggestion of how we can make room. I had one teacher in the Madison School District, Lincoln Elementary School, indicated that we shouldn't start quite so early with the keyboard. A little third grade, the hands of third graders are small. Really too small, she believes, to start that early with keyboard, and that we should spend more time in the third grade with cursive handwriting, and then just delay the work with the keyboard a little longer. You see, so let's, you know, they're going to get the keyboard sooner or later. I mean, we don't have to worry about that. So just delay our instruction in keyboarding, spend more time. Their little hands get as their hands grow larger. And this handwriting, cursive, actually helps them become better keyboarders. It loosens up their muscles so that they wind up being keyboarders. Now, that's from a teacher at Lincoln Elementary School. We will lose it if we don't have a state standard. I'm convinced of that. We will lose it. I visited 5 elementary schools before I came over here. The support was overwhelming. But I'll tell you where I got some questions and some lack of passion, and that was among some of the younger teachers. Some of the younger teachers they hadn't really, some of them had, believe it or not, trouble reading it themselves. I couldn't believe it. One that couldn't remember how to make a cursive F. And they're not receiving instruction in our colleges of education. BYU they require that their elementary teachers take a course in cursive, but they're an exception. So if we don't have a state standard, we're going to lose it as the younger teachers gain influence in our schools, and younger administrators. You have the chance right here. We're at the crossroads, and you have a chance to make positive influence. You can feel your influence right now. Just one more closing remark. My mother, she died in 1998. Before she died, a couple years before she died, or maybe it's a year, she wrote this long, beautiful letter to all of her descendants, her unborn descendants, addressed to my unborn descendants. And this is a beautiful cursive letter, and I made sure that my children got copies, and my grandkids got copies, and that it will go on down through the unborn generations, through all generations of time. But it just scares me to death to think that the time will come when they won't be able to read that beautiful letter written by my mother. They won't be able to read it. And I'll tell you, it's happening. And I don't know, maybe we're trying to hold the ocean back with a pitchfork, you know, all this computer stuff. But let's try. Let's try to initiate a renaissance. And so I'd urge that you support this legislation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee.
Thank you so much, Representative Bateman. Representative Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we send this to the floor with a due pass recommendation. And I'd also like to comment on, if I may, just briefly, Mr. Chairman. We've had a very lively discussion on it, and at least two occasions. I've been thinking the last few days on this of how important it is. There's definitely a nexus between cursive handwriting and composition of sentence structure in English and so forth. And I'm really concerned about what direction we're taking in our education when I see on a daily basis reports and memos and everything else that comes that is just absolutely abrasive to me in them being incomplete. Sentences aren't even completed. Spelling is terrible. Our composition is really going south. And these are people that have bachelor degrees. These aren't just high school educated individuals. They've got masters and bachelors. And I'm going, how did you ever possibly get a master's degree when you can't spell correctly? I'm going. So I really question about what direction we're going with what we're doing in some of our educational values. But with that, though, I think this is absolutely an essential key ingredient to tie the past with the future and make the future bright. And so I would highly recommend that we send this with a due pass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in support of the motion also, but I would like to comment on one other area. Representative Bateman raised it. The last person testifying raised this question, and the fact that we're going to encourage the state board to do this, and that's the Common Core state standards. Are they really eliminating the other objects that this man spoke of, like music and arts and all that, or are we just emphasizing in 2 or 3 areas on the Common Core state standards, and the others are still important? So I'm wondering about that, and I will pursue that further, but not today.
Thank you. Representative Nielsen. Any other comments? I will maybe just make one on a personal note. I have a 3rd grader, and who has learning disabilities, and they started cursive writing this year, and that made a huge difference in his life to be able to start to express his thoughts and ideas, and so. I don't know that I would have been a believer otherwise, but it's been interesting to see that in his life, and I don't necessarily see that this and technology are mutually exclusive. I have a tablet and my cursive is not good, but nonetheless, my tablet can recognize that writing, and so I don't see these as mutually exclusive. So I think this is a good idea. I think it's an appropriate resolution, a direction that we're giving. And I would certainly hope the state board takes this seriously. So with that, we have a motion on the floor. Any other debate on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.